Okay, let's talk more about President Trump's tariffs, what they may do to the auto sector and beyond here in the U.S. and abroad. And for that, we're joined by Ryan McManus. He's a mobility and energy expert and faunder at Share Mobility. Thanks for taking time, Ryan. It's good to see you.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me.
I want to begin by asking you specifically about the U.S. Auto industry. GM says tariffs on auto parts cost $1.1 billion in the second quarter. We just heard Ford cost some $800 million. So GM, Stellantis, and Ford are worried the tariffs with Japan, Canada, and Mexico are going to adversely affect them. One clear point is, in this complex situation, is the amount of money it costs now to bring parts to the United States to build cars within the U.S. and then sell. There's concern among these car makers that that's actually adding a lot more cost and making it more expensive than building cars overseas. Kind of add some clarity to this if you can.
Yeah, so tariffs in any industry are, a form of inflation, and inflation always gets passed along to the consumer. And what Trump has shown with the tariffs is that they're there to force negotiation in a lot of ways, and they're a threat, not a well thought out global economic policy. This administration doesn't really do thoughtful. And, my friend Peter, he loves to say, just write him a check. And that's really what these tariffs are equivalent to. What the automakers are, they're following up a period post-COVID where vehicle prices are already up 20% and stock values are up 200%. And so I think you're going to see the automakers talk more about it in the press than it will actually affect their bottom line. And a lot of these tariffs are trades with one expense more in another area. There's a hidden savings in another area, but it allows the administration to have a win in the form of tariffs, which everybody likes to talk about.
Yeah, but I remember not too long ago, the auto industry saying, look, it's going to cost more to build a car, and we're going to have to pass that price on to you. And at the time, President Trump saying he would be very disappointed if U.S. automakers did that.
I think they already have. Prices of vehicles are up. They're using pre-tariff sales as a tactic to drive more sales. I think what the auto industry has always done is never let a crisis go to waste, and so ultimately there has been a huge amount of inventory that they have needed to sell. And the tariffs are driving those automakers to make some decisions about making more vehicles domestically. But right now, the tariffs are temporary, and it'll be only time will tell if any of the decisions from the automakers last.
Trump's also turned his back on EVs, and virtually every other automaker really focused on that. What is that going to do to the U.S. 4, 5, 6 years down the road? Is it going to find itself just completely outpaced by the rest of the world?
Oh, I think the U.S. has already been outpaced by a lot of the world in regards to lithium battery production or new battery technologies or even battery safety. But the auto industry had as much to do with the delay in electric vehicle adoption as the Trump administration. And so in a lot of ways, this allows them to just keep making internal combustion vehicles like they had always planned on. And anyone that's been to a car dealership in the last 10 years, you'll understand how much they're still trying to sell combustion vehicles.
Interesting. I want to talk about the recent deal between the EU and the United States, because Trump was simply beaming after that deal. But a lot of members in the EU say that its leadership caved too easily. And France says more negotiations are going to have to be coming. And it really kind of lends itself to this kind of chaos. It's very difficult for any companies to plan, whether it be auto or whatever, because you don't know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, I mean, I see this a lot with both early stage startups and established automakers. They don't have the ability to do long-term strategic planning, and so there's stagnation. There's lack of investing in new technologies. There's lack of acquiring new companies. But automakers and their executives are very focused on short-term profitability and stock prices far more than innovation.
Right.
So anything in the name of selling vehicles.
This may be out of your strong suit, and if it is, just let me know. But a small group of business owners in the U.S. are going to have their day in court on Thursday. They have sued the Trump administration, saying that the tariffs were done in a very punishing way and that the U.S. president lacks the authority to impose these sweeping measures. Firstly, do you think this lawsuit stands a chance, and how significant is it that you have somebody out there really standing up against the U.S. president?
Oh, I think it's great that business owners are standing up and taking the administration to court. There's a ton of things that are doing that are not legal or within the bounds of the presidency, but they're taking those actions. You know, it's kind of the difference between management and leadership. They're just doing. And on the same side, I think businesses need to take that action. And so while they're taking it up in court, I think they also need to be figuring out how they can do it in the form of the free economy.
You know, the U.S. economy is doing well, despite many economists' predictions. But 2 points, however. One, other nations haven't really been retaliating against the U.S. so far. And secondly, U.S. companies, for the most part, have been eating the cost. Can this go on, or do you think one day the sky is just going to start falling?
Yeah, I'm not sure I totally agree with that companies have been eating the cost. I think if you look at the impact on Americans, especially those in the kind of bottom quartile of earners, they are experiencing a significant increase in real expenses. What I think you're going to see is consumers start to look at their buying power differently. But to your point on why countries haven't retaliated, America still has a huge amount of buying power, and American consumers love to spend. They absolutely love to spend. And as long as Americans keep spending, that influence is going to be strong. But I'm not sure American consumers are going to keep spending at the rate that they have been. I think there's a bit of an awakening happening.